Can he finally break that trend and get to 9 rebounds in Game 5?
Oh, man, I've lost a lot of sleep, analyzing these Al Horford rebound props.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into Monkey Knife Fights NBA Finals Game 5 preview show. I'm Dan Watkins. Joining me from Rotowire.com, Nick Whalen. Nick, what's up, buddy? How you doing on this wonderful June Monday?
I'm doing well. It is wonderful. We got finally good weather here in Milwaukee. It's been a little bit shaky, I'll say it. The man upstairs has been, pulling some strings, I think, weather-wise, and it's starting to finally feel like summer. The high's like 98 the next couple of days. So fired up, and then obviously we got a great series that's heating up as well.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts and some takeaways here through 4 games of this series as we go into Game 5. I think if I told you 2 weeks ago, Nick, that we'd be tied up 2-2 going into Game 5, you'd probably say, yeah, I can see that happening. But the way we've gotten here has been very interesting, as not a single game in this series has been decided by less than 10 points. Neither team wants to show up on back-to-back nights for a full 48 minutes. Yep. But the cumulative total is Golden State 422, Boston 421. So these teams are neck and neck, dead even here going into Game 5. What do you think of this series so far?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up well, and honestly, it's kind of a microcosm of how these entire playoffs have felt, right? Where we've had a lot of close series, but not a ton of close games or memorable possessions late in games. It kind of feels like it's either like a third or a fourth quarter where one team just completely dominates the other. And that's kind of ended up being the story. And, we had a little bit of a closer game in Game 4. The Warriors ended up pulling away late. I mean, Boston only scored 3 points in the final 5:18 of game time in that fourth quarter, which I think, to me, that's almost the bigger story than, yes, Steph Curry had 43 points. But, it's Steph Curry. To me, that's not like that big of a surprise. I know he hasn't had he doesn't have this extremely long resume of massive scoring games in the finals, but he's been great all series. I thought it was Golden State, finally finding a way, because even in the game that they won in this series, Game 2, until that onslaught late by Golden State, they had trouble stopping Boston. I feel like in every game, Boston's been the more aggressive team early on. I think the shot creation by the Celtics has been better. It's been impressive to do it against this Warriors defense. It's one thing to do it against banged up Miami, Milwaukee without Middleton, but I think Golden State kind of finally ratcheted up the defense, especially in the second half in Game 4. And, now the question is it going to follow the rest of the series, where do we expect now a double-digit Boston win in Game 5 because they lost by double digits in Game 4, or can we finally see a team, carry over some momentum from game to game?
Yeah, I think, heading into the fourth quarter of Game 4, my confidence level in the Celtics to win this series easily was at least like a 9 out of 10. Going into the fourth quarter. I mean, they survived the Golden State third quarter onslaught that they've done over the years, where they just pull away in the third quarter. They were only down by 1 point heading into the fourth there, and then they just fell apart. Jacking up 3-pointers, which is the Celtics' just biggest, I feel like, mental weakness, is that they feel like they need to match Golden State for 3-point for 3-point, and they went 7 for 21 total on all their shots in the fourth quarter. But I think they were like 4 of 15 or something like that from 3-point range, and they just fell behind and couldn't catch back up there in those last 5 minutes. So I am a little worried about the Celtics going into Game 5, but they're 7-0 following a loss in this postseason, and they're 15-1 following a loss, I think, going back to January 1st. So they've been so resilient, and I'm expecting the Celtics to come out hot tonight in Game 5. But are you a little concerned that this might be, the Celtics might just kind of be falling apart here? They looked gassed in the final 5 minutes on Friday night.
They looked gassed. You're kind of an alarming second half from Jason Tatum, who I want to say I think he only took like 7 or 8 shots in the second half, after looking pretty good, I thought, in the first half. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. You're getting multiple days off. They did go every other, I guess, going into that game. Now you have 2 full rest days, but you're obviously traveling all the way across the country to go back to San Francisco for this one as well. So a lot of factors at play. I don't think we can write off Boston now. This is like what, the 7th time that we've been in this exact spot with Boston. It felt like 3 times in the Milwaukee series alone. You're like, all right, they've lost control. Bucks are going to take it. And what happened every single time? Boston always battled back and found a way. So, maybe that luck runs out at some point. It's kind of a crazy way to play the entire second half of your season and your entire playoff run. They're barely above 500 in the playoffs, which sounds crazy to say, but that's how these series have gone. And I think they've always found a way. And it's really tough to point to exactly what that way is going to be. Maybe it's going to be hitting like 20-some threes like they did against the Bucks. Maybe it's a random role player stepping up. Maybe it's Jason Tatum going for 46 points in a do or die game. Who knows? But I think at this point, Boston has at least earned my trust to the point where I can't say, the Warriors are just going to run away with the series now.
Yeah, and I hope you mentioned alarming fourth quarter second half Jason Tatum. I think it's been an alarming NBA Finals from Jason Tatum. He has not been the superstar that we all thought he is now. We thought he has entered that upper echelon of NBA talent and greatness here in the active current NBA, but he has just not been good. His total, he finished with 28 points is his game high so far in those game 2 in this NBA Finals. So I feel like we're due for a Jason Tatum game here some point in the next 2 to 3 games, however long this series goes. But if Jason Tatum wants to be that superstar that he thinks he is, he's got to show up and take over one of these next couple nights. I want to backtrack though and go back before game 4. There was a lot of social media press conference drama with the Golden State Warriors and the Boston fans. Nick, you as an outsider living in Milwaukee, what do you think of the Boston fans? The real classy comments by Golden State. Do you think Golden State has a legit gripe, or do you think that they're just being big babies?
Is that a Boston reference to the big baby, Glenn Davis? I hope so. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's kind of part of sports, right? It'd be weird if Boston fans were not chanting expletives that Mike Breen has to like subtly acknowledge on the broadcast. I don't know. I think, do we want all fans to just kind of be the same? And, it doesn't really matter what city you're in. It all feels the same. Like, I think it's cool. I mean, obviously it's like, if it's your team playing the Celtics, like after that Milwaukee series, I hated the Celtics guts. You're like, every time, I think what's impressive more than anything with these fans is that every time they, like there's a big basket and they show a fan cheering before they head to commercial, it's always like the most Boston looking person of all time. Like everybody in the crowd appears to be like a caricature of a Boston Celtics fan, or at least what outsiders think a Boston Celtics fan would look and act and sound like. But I think it's cool. I think it's authentic, right? There's not that many, kind of special type of environments, I feel like, in pro sports anymore. It's like all arenas kind of look the same. All football stadiums kind of feel the same nowadays. So like, the uniqueness of the Boston fans is something that I don't think, is lost on the NBA, because there just aren't that many kind of special situations anymore. So I don't know, as a player, it's like, I feel like it'd be fun to play in that environment. Like, obviously you don't want people saying F you to somebody on your team, but I don't know, like as an opposing fan, we saw it in the first quarter with Steph Curry in game 4. I mean, he was fired up, he's talking back to the fans. Like, I think as a player, at least as somebody who played, like low-level high school basketball, I think I'm qualified to say it's got to be fun to play an environment like that.
Yeah, it's all fun. It's good stuff as long as they're not throwing water bottles and there's no racial undertones to anything, which there hasn't been. As far as I know, I haven't seen anything like that. But at the same time, you got Golden State and Klay Thompson, Draymond Green on the other side, saying real classy, swearing in front of kids. Draymond then goes to the podium with his son and drops the S-bomb. So it's really funny. And then the other thing I saw too was the Golden State was scared to leave their hotel rooms or whatever, saying that they got flipped off 17 times on their walk to the stadium.
Is that an exact count?
Yeah, that's an average drive to work for me. So that is nothing new, and that is very Boston. So I find that to be very good. Let's move on to game 5 here, Nick. My key concern here for the Celtics and how this game's going to go is, can they hang on to the basketball? The Celts are 14-2 in this postseason when they have 15 or less turnovers. They are 0-6 with 16 or more, which they have had in game 2 and in game 4 of this finals, which they lost both of those games. And I think limiting Golden State in transition is just the key for Boston here. And if they can do that, they're going to come out ahead tonight. What is your key to the game for game 5?
Well, I mean, for Boston specifically, I think you have to get Jason Tatum going here at some point, and that seems too obvious. Like, obviously, if he's going to shoot 34% for the series, they're probably going to end up losing this in 6 or 7 games. So, he doesn't necessarily have to have that 46 point, put the team on your back type of performance. But I don't think we're not going to see another game like game 1 where he can go 3 of 17 from the field and the team like cruises to a victory. Like, that's just not sustainable. That was a 1 out of 100 type of game with the way that they shot the ball in the fourth quarter. So I think we need, like you said at the top of the show, you need one of those performances where Jason Tatum solidifies himself at least in that conversation as like, is this one of the 3 to 5 best players in the NBA? Because that's the conversation we were having coming into the series. And excuse me, I think through 4 games, it kind of feels like he's like played his way out of that conversation all of a sudden. But obviously the talent is still there. In the last 2 weeks, he didn't just become a significantly worse basketball player. But I think they need one of those games where he steps up and shows why he was, a kind of shoe-in for first team All-NBA this season.
Completely agree. And let's get right into our props here on MKF for game 5. Tatum's more or less total here is 27.5 points, Nick. He's averaging 22.3 a game. He's finished with more than 27.5 just once. That was in game 2 where he finished with 28. Can he break that trend here and get to 28 points tonight?
I've been taking Tatum overs throughout the entire series, and it has not been profitable. Let me tell you that. I think he only went over once, depending on the line you got. And that would have been game 2 when he had 28. I got to go under. I think for now, right? I mean, like he's kind of just proven that he'll have these quarters or he'll have these stretches where it looks like he's on his way to a 40-point night. And more often than not, it just kind of peters out, as the game goes along. And at some point he's going to break through in this series. I think, like I said, he's not going to finish the series shooting 34%, but I'm a little bit spooked by these last 4 games, and it's tough for me to look at that number and say, hammer the more.
Yeah, I think tonight's going to be the night he breaks through. I expect the Celtics to bounce back big time tonight. Tatum is actually shooting 45% from 3-point range. So I think he's going to hit probably 4 or 5 of those tonight. And he's got to get that eventually the 2-pointers got to start falling for him too. He's hit so many of these turnaround jump shots that he's just come up short with. I don't know if that's the shoulder still bothering him a little bit, but he's less than 30% from within the arc. Eventually he's
14 of 51 on 2-pointers.
Not good, but I think tonight's the night he finally breaks through. I'm going to go with more. I think Tatum gets like 31, 32 tonight. Moving on to Steph Curry, 30.5 is his more or less. This number has gone up and up and up as this series has gone on, as Steph is just having just one heck of an NBA Finals. He's averaging 34.3 points per game, including that 43-point outburst on Friday night in game 4 in Boston. Nick, more or less 30.5 for Steph.
I think I got to give essentially the opposite answer. I mean, you can't say that Steph Curry has not lived up to any expectation. I think he's played well beyond the expectations so far in these finals. A guy who traditionally is not somebody who's going to just say, all right, I need to take 25 shots and score 40-some points tonight. In finals past, the teams have been so loaded, that he's just kind of been able to put it on cruise control and pick his spots and be more of a distributor. But man, I think we're seeing the version of Steph that a lot of people have wanted to see for a long time, kind of like, what could this guy do if he didn't have such overwhelming talent around him? And it's been really fun through 4 games. So I think he keeps it going. I think he's clearly in a really good zone right now, mentally, physically. I mean, the ankle did not appear to be an issue whatsoever in game 4. And whereas I look at Tatum and say, I just, you got to show me before I go more here. I mean, with Curry, it's like, show me that you're going to go less. I mean, 30.5, his lowest total in this series so far is 29. And that was in a game that turned into a blowout in game 2. So I'm going to go more here pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm going to go more as well. Steph's going to get his when he wants to get his. I would like to see the Celtics put Marcus Smart on him a little more often than they have been so far this series. Smart's actually guarded him fairly well. I think he has more turnovers than assists when Smart is on him, but Golden State's done a good job getting away from that. But I'm going to go more here with 30.5 for Curry. Jaylen Brown, 23.5 is his more or less. He's averaging 22.3 points per game, exact same as Jason Tatum, but Jaylen Brown, I feel like, has played just so much better than Jason Tatum so far in this series. He's gone over this number in just 2 of 4 games, though, Nick. Finished with 21 in game 4. Can he get to 24 tonight?
I think he can. It kind of feels like he's averaged more than 22 points in this series. He's had a lot of huge buckets. He's had a lot of sprees where it feels like he'll score like 9 in a row. There's just nobody on Golden State that could stop him. I think I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Jaylen Brown. I think he's been, much more efficient than Jason Tatum. They have the same number of points on fewer shots. And he's just been more aggressive. He's looked more comfortable. And that says a lot for a guy who, as recently as like a month ago, a lot of people were still kind of wondering, it's like, can he be a true number 2 guy? And I think he's answered that question pretty emphatically in these finals. So it hasn't really mattered, whether the games have been in Boston or San Francisco for him. I think he's been locked in. So I'm going to go less on Tatum, but I'll go more on Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite from you here on this one. I'm going to go less. I think Brown's going to finish right around 20 tonight. I think this is going to be a classic Jason Tatum ball hog jacking up probably like 20 plus shots tonight. So I just don't think.
Is that a good thing? I don't know.
We'll find out. I just don't think Jaylen Brown's going to have the volume to get to that tonight. So that's my reasoning there. We'll move on to Klay Thompson. 3.5 3-pointers for Klay. He's averaging 3.25 per game. He's gone over that number in each of the past 2 games. He did that in Boston. He did not go over in either game in Golden State. Nick, what do you think from Klay tonight?
Klay feels locked into me as well. I know the shooting numbers aren't overwhelming by any means, but I think he looks really confident. He still seems to be hitting like every time they really need a big shot, especially in game 4, which was not a fantastic game from him from start to finish, but he's still the number 1 guy in the world that I would not want shooting a wide open, catch and shoot 3, if I'm the other team. There's nobody in the league that I think, has a better chance to knock that down than Klay Thompson. This number is a little bit high at 3.5. I mean, you're asking him to get to 4, but it's kind of been feast or famine for Klay throughout these playoffs. There's a lot of games where he's 1 of 8, 2 of 6, 2 of 9, but then there's a lot of 8 of 16, 5 of 13, 8 of 14 back in the Memphis series. So it feels like he's either going to clear it by like 3 made threes or he's going to go way under. But you know what? Warriors are coming back home. I think he's just getting more and more comfortable. I'll go more on 3.5 for Klay.
Yeah, I'll go more for the same reason you just mentioned. He looks like he's finally starting to get locked in and get comfortable in this series. So I think he'll get to 4 3-pointers tonight. Al Horford, this number on MKF shocked me a little bit when I saw it, Nick. It's still at 8.5 rebounds for Horford. This number has not come down, even though Horford has not gotten to 9 rebounds in a single game so far this series. He's finished with 6 twice, and he's finished with 8 twice, giving him an average of 7 boards a game. Can he finally break that trend and get to 9 rebounds in game 5?
Man, I've lost a lot of sleep, analyzing these Al Horford rebounds props throughout the postseason. This is an interesting number. I think it's a little high from the folks at MKF. Like you said, he hasn't approached this number in this series yet. 2 8-rebound games, 2 6-rebound games. I'm going to say he follows that trend and goes less here. I think Golden State early in the series, I thought rebounding was a major issue for the Warriors. It was an issue in game 3 as well. I think Boston had 15 offensive boards in that game, but they locked it down in game 4. I mean, Andrew Wiggins was fantastic in that capacity. I think Klay Thompson has been a little more locked in. He was giving up a ton of rebounds early in the series. And Kevon Looney has emerged as, I think, one of the premier kind of rebounding, dirty work specialists in these playoffs as well. So they've done a good job, I think, limiting Al Horford since game 1. So I'm going to go less here.
Yeah, I'm going to go less. He hasn't given me a reason to go more. Heading into the series in game 1, I remember this was my favorite play for game 1 of him to go more than 8.5 rebounds. Didn't get that. So I'm going to go with less here for game 5 for 8.5 rebounds for Al Horford. And then finally, the man of the hour that everyone's talking about, and that's Draymond Green. 6.5 assists is his total here on MKF for tonight. Nick, I want to throw a couple Draymond stats at you. For this one. He has 18 fouls in this series and just 17 points through four games. Stephen A. Smith on First Take this morning called it the worst performance in NBA Finals history by a starter. And then heading into game 4, when I think this is still true because he did not break this in game 4, he had put out 17 podcasts and he had only 14 games in the entire playoff runs with double-digit points, assists, or rebounds. So it's been quite the interesting playoff run for Draymond Green. I mean, what has happened to this guy? A couple years, I mean, he has just lost all of his offensive talent. It's like Space Jam when the monsters take the powers away from the NBA guys. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're going on year 6 of this. I think the problem was he had that crazy shooting year in 2015-16, when they won 73 games. He had 5 threes in the first half of game 7 against the Cavs that year. And that was the 1-year blip of all 1-year blips. I mean, he shot 39% from 3 that year. And since then, it's been 31%, 30%, 28%, 28%, 27%, 29%. And the attempts, continue to dwindle. Obviously, the confidence is at an all-time low. It really since whoever sent out that tweet that said it looks like he's shooting with a backpack on, ever since that moment, he has been unable to shoot. And it's damaging, obviously, for Golden State. I mean, the way that they play him, he's no longer even remotely a threat. I mean, I think it was game 3. He was completely unguarded, 12 feet from the basket, and could have either gone in for what would have ended up being a contested layup or just shot this completely wide open mid-range jumper. And he turned his back to the basket and just started kind of doing that thing where he's looking to do a handoff or do kind of a backdoor pass. I mean, he's still a really good passer. I do think he's maybe become underrated in terms of what he does intangibly on defense. Obviously the offense is a complete disaster, especially when he's out there with someone like Looney or with someone like Gary Payton, who are also not giving you anything on offense. But I still think, I mean, defensively, he's such a unique guy. Body wise, he can guard everybody. He can stay in front of everybody. I think we're maybe underrating his contributions there. Like, he's been a big negative on offense, but I still think he's a major part of the reason this is 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, he gets in the opponent's head so easily, and I think you could see that with some of the Celtics in some of these games. But on the flip side, though, I feel like the Celtics fans were in his head in games 3 and game 4, where he just did not play well at all. No. But so 6.5 assists, Nick. He's averaging 5.8 so far in this finals. He's gone more than 6.5 twice, gone under twice. How does he do in game 5?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it. This feels like kind of a true 50-50. It's a good sign, though, I think, that he's played a ton of minutes in this series. There's been a lot of clamoring for, getting him out of the game. And Steve Kerr did pull him for a big stretch in that fourth quarter, but he still played 33 minutes, still got to 8 assists. A lot of it's just going to come down to, like, how many assists is he getting off of, like, handoffs to Curry where he splashes a 3? That's the easiest way to start racking these up. But I don't know. Golden State back at home, I think we see a more confident shooting performance. Obviously, they've shot the ball pretty well the last 2 games anyway. I think he can get there for the 3rd time in this series.
All right. I'm going to go less just because I just don't have any faith in Draymond.
I think you're a biased source at this point.
I think I'm a little biased tonight in this one. But anyways, prediction time. Who takes game 5? And how do you feel about your series prediction still?
So my series prediction was Golden State in 6. And obviously, I feel better about it now than I did before Friday night, when it felt like if Boston won that game, we could maybe see Celtics in 5 or certainly Celtics in 6. But we'll see, man. I mean, everything can flip so quickly, right? Where Golden State, if they win tonight, all of a sudden they could close it out in 6, and it feels like Boston's on the ropes, and everything is a complete reversal from Friday afternoon. But I think we see Boston bounce back. We got to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? I know now that it feels like everything's going in Golden State's favor. They're 3.5-point favorites at home tonight, but Boston has consistently answered the call in this situation throughout the entire playoffs, and I kind of have to just kind of close my eyes, hang on for dear life, and assume it's going to happen again.
Yeah, I'm going Celtics tonight. They've, like I mentioned here at the start of the show, 7-0 after a loss in this playoff run. I'm expecting them to bounce back tonight. So I'm going Celtics win tonight, and I'm sticking with my Celtics in 7 too. So I think we'll get a game 7 next Sunday night in San Fran.
Hopefully.
All right, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page, and good luck in your contest tonight.